The Collector, the debut novel by English author John Fowles, was published in 1963. The story revolves around Frederick Clegg, a young lepidopterist who becomes fixated on Miranda Grey, a beautiful art student. After acquiring a large sum of money, Frederick kidnaps Miranda and confines her in his cellar, treating her like a prized butterfly. Fowles masterfully combines elements of psychological thriller, romance, and dark comedy, using the narrative to satirize classic romances like Shakespeare's The Tempest while delving into psychological and Gothic horror. The novel explores themes of class conflict, existential choices, and the destructive nature of obsessive collecting. The Collector is divided into 4 chapters. The first, third, and fourth chapters are narrated from Frederick's perspective in the first person. The second chapter presents Miranda's account of her imprisonment through a series of letters. Frederick reveals early on that Miranda has died due to his negligence, but he keeps this information hidden until chapter 3, adding an element of unreliability to his narration. His sporadic hints about her fate underscore his questionable reliability as a storyteller. Frederick's troubled past unfolds as he begins his narrative. At the age of 2, his father dies in a drunk driving accident, and his mother abandons him. He is then raised by his working-class Uncle Dick and Aunt Annie, who become his surrogate parents. Uncle Dick, who deeply loves Frederick, shares his passion for butterfly collecting, and these years become the happiest of Frederick's life. However, the idyllic period abruptly ends when Frederick is 15 and Uncle Dick passes away. Left under the care of his Aunt Annie, who belittles his interest in lepidoptery, Frederick enlists in the army after a brief stint in school. After completing his military service, he finds employment as a clerk. He despises his co-workers for their crassness and their flirtatious behavior. Frederick's obsession with Miranda Grey, a high school student who reminds him of a rare butterfly, intensifies. Miranda, coming from a bourgeois family and educated in private schools, becomes the object of Frederick's fixation. Miranda faces opposition from her abusive, alcoholic parents who disapprove of her aspirations to become an artist. This upbringing fuels her rebellious spirit and resentment. Despite the challenges, Miranda pursues her dream and enrolls in an art school in London. Unbeknownst to her, Frederick continues to stalk Miranda for a year until she moves to London. After winning a fortune from soccer pools, Frederick relocates to the city and resumes his obsessive pursuit of Miranda. He fantasizes about coercing her into disregarding their class differences and falling in love with him. Initially, Frederick insists that his plan was not to kidnap Miranda. He purchases a camper van under the guise of embarking on a butterfly collecting tour across England. Additionally, he acquires a secluded cottage where he prepares a cellar as a prison-like bedroom. After meticulously observing Miranda for 2 weeks, Frederick seizes the opportunity to abduct her and drives her to his remote cottage. The following 2 months become a battle of wills between Frederick and Miranda. Frederick keeps her confined like a prized butterfly, but he soon realizes that having Miranda is not what he expected. Miranda outmatches him in their conversations, constantly putting him on the defensive. While she despises Frederick, often referring to him as Caliban from Shakespeare's The Tempest, she also pities his unfortunate working-class background. Despite numerous failed escape attempts, Miranda strikes a deal with Frederick. She negotiates for better living conditions and her release after 1 month, to which he reluctantly agrees. During this month, an unusual intimacy develops between captor and captive, lord and servant. While Frederick holds complete power over Miranda, he assumes a subservient role in an attempt to win her favor. In a mix of nobility and self-preservation, Miranda attempts to rescue Frederick from his resentment and class anxieties. She teaches him about decor, speech, and art appreciation. However, her efforts ultimately fail, leading to Frederick's growing resentment towards her patronizing lessons. Miranda's imprisonment leads her to keep a secret journal, which is presented in the form of an epistolary account in chapter 2. Her journal aligns with much of Frederick's narrative. In her writings, Miranda attempts to decipher Frederick's enigmatic motives and transforms their conversations into theatrical dialogues. Throughout her captivity, Miranda experiences a range of emotions, from defiance and defeat to conciliation and rage. She often reflects on her past love affair with a 41-year-old painter named George Potton, whom she idolizes for challenging her conventional views on art and introducing her to a world of superior opinions. Miranda adopts George's persona as her own, considering him faultless. However, as she writes in her journal, she begins to recognize George's flaws and gains confidence in her own artistic opinions. By the end of her captivity, Miranda discards her facade and embraces her authentic self. Surprisingly, she expresses gratitude for the transformation she underwent during her ordeal. At the end of the agreed-upon month, Frederick proposes to Miranda, but she rejects him. In response, he breaks his promise to release her and resorts to violence for the first time in a month. He chloroforms her, undresses her, and takes photographs of her unconscious body. This incident shatters the pretense of civility between them. Miranda attempts to rebuild rapport with Frederick during her escape attempts, but realizes that each endeavor pushes him closer to violence. Desperate to escape, Miranda resorts to seducing Frederick, but her attempt fails as he is too repressed to respond and instead becomes angry. Days later, when Miranda falls ill with a cold, Frederick takes revenge by forcing her to pose nude for photographs. In her journal, Miranda's desperation grows, and in her final entry, she pleads to God for salvation. As her condition worsens and she becomes delirious, Frederick moves her into the cottage, but deliberately delays seeking medical help. While Frederick is busy dusting in another room, Miranda tragically passes away. Overwhelmed with guilt and blaming himself for her death, Frederick contemplates destroying any evidence of his abusive actions. He plans to write a letter to the police, framing his relationship with Miranda as a tragic Romeo and Juliet tale, and intends to end his own life. However, his plans take a turn when he discovers Miranda's journal. Reading through the journal, Frederick learns that Miranda never reciprocated his feelings and was consumed by thoughts of George. This revelation leads him to rationalize that he was not directly responsible for Miranda's demise. Instead of carrying out his previous plans, he decides to bury Miranda in his backyard. In the following weeks, Frederick becomes fixated on a shopgirl named Marion in a nearby town, who bears a resemblance to Miranda, fueling his obsession once again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.